Good morning to you all, and welcome to today's webinar for the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Circular Materials Challenge, brought to you by NineSigma. My name is Jonathan Yakasha from NineSigma, and I'll be your host and moderator for this webinar. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. The recording and transcription will be made available on the Circular Materials Challenge page. Our agenda for today. I'll begin with an introduction of our speakers. There will be an overview of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and then our panelists will begin discussing the project in greater depth. We'll answer your questions during our live Q&A session and conclude with a brief summary of important project details, including where to get more information. As we proceed through the presentation, please feel free to ask questions at any time via the Q&A chat box. We'll keep track of your questions and address them during the Q&A portion of the webinar. Moving along now, I'd like to introduce our panelists from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and from NineSigma. First, from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, we have Mats Linder, PhD, and Michiel de Smet, PhD. They are both project managers with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And from NineSigma, we're joined by Stephen Clulow, PhD, Vice President for Service Delivery, NineSigma Europe. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today. Michiel, how about we begin with you today? Could you please tell our listeners more about the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and your organization's view on plastics in the world?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you very much for the introduction. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation is a charity that has been founded 6 years ago with the aim to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. When the founder, Dame Ellen MacArthur, finished her sailing activities, she figured out that the way we currently operate our economy won't bring us of this century. When we look into industries and the general economy and how it works, we notice it's very much a take, make, dispose economy. We take resources, we make something out of it, and we dispose of it. At the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, we understood that this linear model, as we call it, this one-way system, is ripe for disruption. And through creating a positive alternative future, an alternative economic model, we hope to inspire a new generation to actually move towards this alternative model for our economy. The slide we're currently looking at is what we call the butterfly diagram, and it represents the circular economy in a nutshell. We've got two specific cycles. We've got the biological cycle and the technical cycle. I won't go through the diagram in detail, but I just want to share some obvious points. As for example, as you can see on the right-hand side, if we think about the circular economy and how to maintain products, materials and components at their highest utility throughout their life cycle, you'll see some of the actions one can undertake to actually make that happen. It's about sharing your assets, it's about maintaining, it's about prolonging the life on the technical cycle, and on the left-hand side, the biological cycle, it's about cascading and understanding how we can keep the nutrient value as high as possible throughout the life cycle of your product or material. Next slide, please. When we at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation looked at different industries and materials, we soon figured out, together with McKinsey & Company and the World Economic Forum, that plastics is a typical linear, or operates in a typical linear system. It's a typical take, make, dispose system, as we would call it. What you're looking at the moment is a representation of the plastics packaging globally. So you'll soon notice that when you look at it, only 14% of plastic packaging put on the market globally gets collected for recycling. And if you push it a bit further, only 2% gets recycled in a closed loop way, meaning, for example, transforming a PET bottle into another food grade application. So thinking about the original idea of maintaining or ensuring that products and materials stay at the highest utility, clearly, if you have 32% leaked or 40% landfilled, this doesn't suit a circular economy. It's a typical linear system. First of all, when we look at this, there's a clear economic loss. We calculated that annually between 80 and 120 billion US dollars get lost to our global economy because we do not succeed in capturing the material value of plastic packaging after we've been using it only once. So that's one important drawback of the current system in which plastics operate. But there's more. Next slide, please. There's also the negative externalities. We calculated in a business as usual that demand for plastics, demands for this material will increase, but together with that also the negative externalities that originate from the current linear system. And one mind-blowing stat that we calculated is that in a business as usual scenario, there could be more plastics than fish by weight in our ocean by 2050. Obviously, plastics as a material clearly has advantages. It's lightweight, it's a versatile material with a lot of functionality. It helps reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So then the question arises, how can we ensure that we keep and harness the benefits we see nowadays, but at the same time address the shortcomings, whether it's the economic shortcomings and the fact that we lose so much value annually, or whether it's the negative externalities and the impact on our society and environment. That's why we at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation created a positive vision of a plastic system that works. Next slide, please. What you're looking at here is what we call the new plastics economy. It's a model that rethinks the future of plastics. It contrasts the previous slide where you had a very linear system, the take, make, dispose system, whereas this one is in line with the principles of a circular economy. It's ensuring that we preserve and enhance natural systems. It's maintaining the value of your materials and products at the highest utility throughout the life cycle, and it's minimizing and designing out negative externalities. This new plastics economy, this new model, is based on three ambitions or three goals. The first one is creating an effective after-use plastics economy. It's about ensuring that we've got the right incentives in place such that plastics and plastic packaging get collected, sorted, and reused or recycled. It's truly keeping your plastics in the economy. This is the cornerstone, and once this one is in place, the second and the third ambition will be easier to accomplish. The second one is about drastically reducing the leakage of plastics into natural systems, as well as other negative externalities. And then the third one is about decoupling plastics from fossil feedstock, if we want to ensure that the system we come up with, the system we design, is future-proof. Again, the first one is at the heart of the new plastics economy. It's ensuring that we can close the loops, keep plastics in the economy and out of the oceans. Next slide, please. So, after having created this positive vision, which we laid out in a report which was published at the World Economic Forum in 2016, we started an initiative with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. It's called the New Plastics Economy Initiative, and it aims to accelerate a transition towards this plastic system that works. We've got 5 pillars within the initiative, and we work together with business, NGO, and academics to move towards this new plastics economy. The 5 pillars have to do with dialogue, so there's something about bringing together the entire value chain, cross-value chain collaboration, as we call it. There's more about the Global Plastics Protocol and understanding how we can harmonize and use best practice both on the design of plastic and plastic packaging, as well as on the after-use collection, sorting and recycling, and connect the dots between upstream design and downstream reprocessing. That's work we carry out within the Global Plastics Protocol. There's something about evidence base and building our understanding of plastics and the impact of plastics on our society and economy. And clearly there's also something about engaging stakeholders like policymakers, designers and innovators as they too have an important role to play. And finally, it's about innovation. We truly believe that if we want to move from the current linear system towards a new future, we'll need big leaps forward as offered by innovation. And that's part of the work we do there of the innovation moonshot work. But Mats will tell us more about that one. When thinking about the work we do on evidence base, we developed a second report, which was published a couple of months ago at the World Economic Forum in 2017. And in that work, we developed 3 transition strategies to move towards a new plastics economy. Those transition strategies are ahead of you on the slide. It's about reuse. We showed that there is an economic opportunity to reuse 20% of the current plastic packaging market. For another 50%, there's a possibility to drastically improve recycling to ensure that the uptake, the quality, and the economics of current recycling practices can be improved and actually start making it attractive to collect, sort, and recycle. And then finally, for 30% of the current plastic packaging market, we will need fundamental redesign and innovation in order to fit into an effective after-use circular pathway. And it's on this fundamental redesign and innovation bit that Mats is going to give us some more information. Please, Mats, go ahead.
Thank you, Mikhail. We can jump ahead to the next slide, which takes a close look at what's really in that 30%. And by and large, if you think about it, that is quite a lot of plastics in the packaging market that is, according to our analysis, never going to be reused or recycled in an economically viable fashion. We're talking almost a third by weight, and according to our estimates, more than half of every single item that you come in contact with. And that's of course a pretty big design flaw for the plastic system, and that's not saying that plastic designers or packaging designers are incompetent. On the contrary, they're probably very competent, but it's saying something around the design brief that has been fundamental to plastic packaging design and how that has created a system that simply is broken, that similar to what Mikhail already mentioned. And looking at what the 30% consists of, we have 4 categories. Small format packaging that simply would be too small to get either collected or sorted if collected. We have multi-material laminates that are more and more common, and we will obviously talk a bit more about them in a moment. We have a large range of materials that are too uncommon to really scale from an after-use point of view, and we have also the challenge of nutrient contamination that disrupts the closed-loop recycling of many packaging, especially in food. And in the report, Catalyzing Action, that Mikhail mentioned, we have looked at these different buckets individually because they obviously need different approaches in order to set them on a systemically viable pathway. And what we're going to focus on today is the multi-material laminate packaging. So if you go to the next slide, just to zoom in a little bit, we're seeing that something like roughly 13% of all packaging today is made up of these multi-material laminate films, clearly because they are very efficient in conducting the task as a packaging item. They tick 2 of the more important boxes in plastic packaging. You could say they are very, very lightweight, or you are, thanks to the multi-material nature, able to reduce the thickness and weight of the film drastically. And because you combine the properties of different films, they're also able to have very high gas and moisture barriers, which is excellent to preserve food waste. Because of this, this is probably one of the fastest growest segments in plastics packaging. If you go back a couple of decades, there were very few of these multi-material laminates around. but they have been growing exponentially lately, and most forecasts seem to point that will continue to be the case in the future. The problem, of course, is that they really don't get recycled, and this is purely because of how they are designed and manufactured. Of course, it is possible technically to delaminate, taking 1 nanometer or micrometer, tens of micrometer thick layer off one after the other, and put them in different piles for different types of polymers. But the effort to do that simply doesn't compare favorably with the type of economic value you get back from the material. And because of this problem, and because of the lack of sort of a systemic fit for the multi-material packaging, what we concluded in the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is that we need to radically rethink this type of packaging. And that's why we have, as part of the New Plastics Economy Innovation Prize, launched the Circular Materials Challenge. So if you go to the next page, what we're asking here is actually more than just a mouthful, which might be as expected. There wouldn't be maybe a need for a big innovation challenge if this was an easy problem to solve. But what we think is needed is alternatives for these non-recyclable multi-material films that could be collected, first of all, of course, sorted according to some efficient sorting mechanism, and either recycled in a mechanical or perhaps chemical fashion and used in new material applications, or perhaps composted or anaerobically digested, where that makes sense from a full life cycle perspective. This could, of course, be, you might wonder, is this a request to come up with a completely new polymer that can solve problems that no single polymer have previously been able to? Or is this a converting or compounding challenge where I'm supposed to take existing materials and polymers and put them together into some kind of new mix? Well, we, apart from the brief that this needs to be a viable replacement for non-recyclable multi-material films, we are pretty open to the type of solutions that you come up with. We are, if you are a material inventor, a chemist, or if you are a compounder or a converter, you are welcome to submit a proposal. We're also open to broad range of maturity stages of proposals. The key evaluation criteria here is that you need to be able to show compellingly that your solution can improve the plastic system. And I'd really like to emphasize the two last words here, the plastics system. What we have seen repeatedly as we have kind of researched and scoped the innovation challenge, and also as part of the broader innovation moonshot work that Mikhail mentioned, we tend to be, as innovators, quite used to think very vertically when it comes to innovation. We think about innovation as a solution to the most recently appeared problem. And as such, we might be successful in solving that problem, but very often we create a new one as an unintended consequence. And therefore, we need another innovation to solve that one, and so forth. And this kind of thinking, which of course is sort of how we have always gone at it since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, has led to most activities in innovation space being either, especially to take care of non-recyclable plastics, in the after-use or end-of-pipe space, where people look at new, exciting recycling technologies. Sometimes people look at ways to get plastics back from the marine environment, the ocean, or other places. And of course, these innovations are can be quite powerful if you do them well. But we're sort of seeing that this is a pretty crowded space, and we're also see with a systemic perspective that even though you go up and do thousands of those innovations, you will not really change the system. So what we are really looking for are innovations that can be conducing and enabling to a new plastics economy as we imagine it. One where plastics doesn't become waste, one which is designed to work in the first place, and where the different parts really fit together in a mutually beneficial way. So that is a really important design criteria. Of course, proving all of these points might be difficult, and it's not something that you get disqualified if you can't. But it is important to be able to convince the judging panel that this is what you would be able to do. Next slide, please. So we hope that this challenge will be a great opportunity to accelerate your idea no matter at what stage of maturity you are. The total prize pool for the challenge is $1 million, which can be distributed up to 5 winners each. That would receive $200,000 each. And of course, we're fully aware that in the big and scary world of plastics industry, to really scale a solution, you need a big multiple of that number and a number of years of innovation, piloting, and scaling. So clearly, the price and its scope is can be seen as a starting point, but of course not a comprehensive pathway to success. But what we have done on top of the prize itself is to devise a 1-year-long accelerator program we call the New Plastics Economy Acceleration Program, where you will be, thanks to the access to a broad group of stakeholders that we have in the initiative, you would be able to get into conversation with some of the leading consumer brands, packaging converters, material manufacturers, and recyclers, and draw on their expertise, become guided by their mentorship, and receive technical support. In addition, the accelerator program will be an interesting opportunity to get in touch with investors and see how you can get help from either venture capitalists, activist investors, or others to take the idea forward also beyond the accelerator program and the initial steps towards commercialization. So we're really serious about the winning contributions becoming set on a pathway towards long-term impact and long-term success. With that, I would like to go to the next slide, and I believe that's also me handing it over to Stephen.
Mats, thank you very much. I'd like to build on what Mats said and describe how the Circular Materials Challenge is open to a wide range of possibilities. We're inviting proposals that could be a new material or a new formulation or a variant of an existing material, or perhaps an existing material used in a new way. And the most important thing is that it should be a recyclable monomaterial or a bio-based compostable material that's got the potential to be used in packaging applications. So we're looking for materials that have barrier properties that mean they could be used to package dry products, moist products, or liquid products. We're open to materials with a range of barrier properties. A material that could be used in any one or all of those applications for dry, moist, or liquid products would be most welcome. We're interested in whether the material has suitable manufacturing and other properties that make it useful for packaging consumer products. So, for example, has it got suitable mechanical properties so that it can be used for packaging? Or if it's likely to be used for food applications, is it likely to be safe for those applications? And finally, as Matt said, it's really important that the material could be collected, recycled or composted after use. Now, perhaps it could be recycled in an existing system, or perhaps it could be recycled or composted in an existing system that's been modified slightly. Or it may require a completely new system. All of these are good, but what we'd like you to do in your proposal is to outline how you think the material could be collected and recycled or composted, so that we're beginning to see your vision for how that material could be used and how that will improve and lead to a circular plastics economy. And as Matt said earlier, we're open to very early stage ideas to much more mature innovations. So if you've got something that's ready to use straight off the shelf, I think we would be surprised by that, but we would be delighted to receive it. But we'd be equally delighted to receive ideas that have the potential to become the recyclable, circular packaging of the future. Next slide, please. So once you've submitted a proposal, the proposal will be evaluated by a panel of leading experts. And I'm really excited by the experts and the organisations that make up our judging panel. I'm not going to read them out individually to you, but I think the most exciting thing about the panel is the spectrum of experts that are involved. So we're going from people who are fundamental researchers in materials, through plastic producers, through to consumer goods companies who produce and use a vast variety of packaging and a vast variety of applications, right through to companies and organisations that are involved in the recycling. So I think what we've assembled here is what Mikkel spoke about, this cross-value chain view of materials. And I think the cross-value chain panel that we've assembled brings a wealth of experience to the evaluation process. Next slide, please. So when they're evaluating the proposals, the panel are going to really consider the potential that the solution has. So it doesn't matter if it's an early stage idea, the panel are going to be looking for something with potential. Could it be used to package, in packaging in consumer product applications? How feasible is the recycling and composting in an existing system or in a system that could be developed? And they're going to consider a broad range of technical aspects when they're looking at the potential of the material. As we've outlined, the feasibility to collect, to separate, to recycle or compost the material. The material properties needed for the application that you suggest are really important, and we're really interested to see supporting data around the properties of the material that you're proposing. Another factor that the panel are going to be considering is how easy is it to source and to manufacture the material. It may be an existing material that could be sourced and manufactured easily, or it could be a completely new idea. So there we're looking for you to articulate how that material could be sourced and how it could be used in manufacturing. And again, the panel are looking at the potential, not what is the current state, but the potential that could be developed in the long term, because we're after long-term solutions here. And finally, the other aspect of the proposal assessment is about the team and the solution, and how much benefit the solution and the team would derive from being involved in the accelerator program, because we really want to identify solutions that we can accelerate and deliver maximum benefit to as they come into the accelerator program. There's a lot more information available online about the assessment process and exactly how the panel will do the assessments, and at the end of the webinar we'll give you some links so that you can go through and read in more detail about what we'd like to see in a proposal and how the panel will evaluate the proposals. Next slide, please. So the submission process, I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about the submission process. We've taken just a screenshot of the website for the New Plastics Economy Circular Materials Challenge. And there's a couple of things I'd like to draw your attention to. I would really encourage you to go and download the challenge brief. A lot of thought has gone into the articulation of the challenge, the requirements that we're looking for, and the definitions of such as what compostable means in the current system. So please read through that, really familiarize yourself with the challenge, and when you feel you're ready to submit a proposal, it's really easy. You can create an account and just complete your profile information. We like to have your contact information because that's shared with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, that's shared with all the organizations that make up our judging panel, and you will become a contact of all of those organizations. You can respond online, and there's two ways to do that. When you click the Respond Now button, you'll be directed to a web form that you can complete the different sections on. You can attach images and things like that. There are limited formatting options on there. You can do some formatting. If you really want to make your proposal look good, you want to embed the images next to the relevant text or anything like that, you can create your proposal in Word or Publisher, save it as a PDF, and then simply attach your proposal to the web form and submit it from there. I hasten to add, we're not judging the proposals on how beautiful they look, we're judging the quality of the content, but if you feel you want to do a really nicely formatted proposal, please just attach your PDF. We ask that you don't disclose confidential information. At NineSigma, we're really keen to protect your proprietary knowledge and your know-how, and we don't want you disclosing any thing that you might want to file intellectual property on or anything like that. And finally, and you'd be surprised how many people forget, you do need to click Submit at the end. A lot of people save their proposal so they can go back and work on it again, and they forget to submit it. So please just remember to submit your proposal. And the deadline for responses is the 20th of October. So you've got a good time to consider what you would like to put and how you would like to respond. If you'd like more guidance on how to submit a proposal or what to include in your proposal, please reach out to NineSigma. We're really happy to help you in any way that we can. Next slide, please.
All right, we have now come to the frequently asked portion of today's webinar. These are questions that have either already been submitted to the NineSigma Provider Help Desk or questions that are typically asked about other NineSigma projects. First off, Stephen, will you consider proposals that are a collaboration between two or more different organizations?
Yes, absolutely. We realize that this is a complicated space, and often you need to bring together the different capabilities that are held in different organizations. So we are very, very open to proposals that come from more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 organizations at the same time.
Very good. Thank you, Stephen. Our next question is, who will own the intellectual property or IP contained in a proposal, and who will own the IP developed in the accelerator?
So the IP that's generated will be owned by the solution provider, and you'll retain all rights to your own IP. Everything that's generated in the accelerator and everything that's contained in the proposal is the very simple answer to that.
Very good. Our next question, and this is a very common question, what sort of information should I include in my proposal, along with how long should my proposal be?
Yeah, if you go online, you'll see there's quite a lot of guidance about the information that should be included in the proposal. If you read through the Circular Materials Challenge document, you will see that there's a whole series of questions around the technical information that we'd like you to include. And that covers some of the things we've talked about already, the barrier properties, the mechanical properties, how the material could be separated or recycled, and so on. We also like you to include some supporting data, so if you've got any experimental or real-world data or references to support what you're saying, please include those references or that data. We're very pleased to receive those. Typically, proposals should be around 2 to 4 pages long for this, but there isn't a hard and fast rule. The guidance I normally give to people is that a clear, concise, well-structured, well-thought-through proposal often has a much greater chance of success than a very long and rambling proposal. So it's sometimes better to spend time editing and making your proposal as clear as possible rather than spending time just adding more information.
Thank you, Stephen. And our last FAQ, how do I know if my approach is within scope for this project?
Yeah, there's, again, 2 very simple ways of finding that out. Please read through the background material in the technical brief documents. I believe that should be clear, but if you still have any questions, please just contact NineSigma through our help desk, and we'd be very happy to answer and discuss with you whether your proposal is likely to be in scope.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. We'll now turn to our live Q&A session. If you haven't already submitted a question, or if you've thought of a new question that you would like to pose to the representatives from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation or NineSigma, please avail yourself of this opportunity. This is a fantastic chance for you to pose your questions directly to these representatives and get an answer very, very quickly. We'll take the rest of our time today to go through the questions that you've submitted. If we don't get to all of the questions, don't worry. The questions are being archived and will be available on the contest page. First off, and Matt, I believe you touched on this earlier, would the Ellen MacArthur Foundation be interested in solutions that are able to extract plastic directly from the ocean as well as recycling on land?
Yeah, it's a very common question that we get, and we are aware of many pretty sophisticated innovations out there that do just this. But for this challenge, we are not interested, and that goes back to our aim of catalyzing innovations towards a system that works. Plastics in the ocean is simply a problem that cannot be treated by treating the symptom, which is plastic in the ocean, but we need to treat the cause. And we believe that while the materials challenge is not the only thing we need to focus on to treat the cause, it is one of the vital parts. Finding materials that can be actually in a viable way recycled or reused and create closed loop material flows.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Stephen, I believe our next question will go to you. Can a single team submit more than one proposal?
Yes, of course. We welcome that. I think the thing to be careful about is that you clearly differentiate your proposals. So submitting 2 proposals that are very similar would not be a good use of your time. I think multiple proposals from the same team are welcome, but be very careful to clearly articulate each material that you're proposing, and so that it's really clear to the judging panels what the differences between the 2 proposals are.
Okay, and Stephen, we're actually going to stay with you. I have a question asking if you could possibly repeat the typical length of a proposal.
Yeah, it's very variable. I think between 2 and 4 pages would probably be our typical length of proposal. It is very variable. The advice I give to people is as I said before, try and write a well-structured, clear, concise proposal rather than just adding, lots of information. I also would advise people the length of the proposal should be, you should know when it's about right. You should know when you've covered the various aspects of the proposal. If you still feel it's too short and you'd like to add more information, then please add more. I think you're the best judge of whether you've articulated what you're trying to describe and whether you've given your innovation the best possible chance of success.
Okay. I might chip in just to build on that. So, as Stephen described a moment ago, it's really about a large part of the proposal is to show a compelling explanation for how your material or solution in general would work in the system. And of course, it may mean that the length varies a little bit with the type of solution. For example, if you need to describe a completely new recycling pathway because you have a completely new kind of material, it might need a bit more explanation than if you have something that is a very clear, a clear-cut drop-in into current recycling infrastructure. So I think that's something we're definitely mindful of, that depending on in which area you choose to play, so to speak, that might affect how much explanation you need to include as well.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Mats, I think our next question will probably go to you or to Michiel. Is work associated with or developed by the judging panelists organization ineligible to apply to the challenge?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm sure I get it right.
Sure. I believe the submitter is wondering if work that was done with the panelist or the judging paneling organizations, if that would be ineligible for consideration in this challenge.
Yes, we definitely have. Yes, we do have. We would run into a problem if we saw that there were some kind of affiliation or bias with the judging panelists. However, we do have as part of the code of conduct for the judging panelist an obligation to to flag whether a proposal is something that a panelist has been involved with in some way, and then that means there is an opportunity for that panelist to step out and kind of recuse themselves from the discussion about that proposal. That means that proposal can be evaluated independently of the person or panelist that might have been involved. And it's a bit of a case-by-case judgment from our side, but technically it could still be possible. However, we probably would not enable someone who represents, say, Mars Inc. to submit a proposal, because Mars Inc. is on the judging panel, and it's not just a person; it's a representative for that organization.
Okay, thank you, Mats. I believe we'll stay with you for our next question, and you've touched on this a little bit in describing the accelerator program. Are stakeholders involved in the program interested in working with the applicants to commercialize the innovations?
I believe they can be. To take a step back, it will be a case-by-case situation, of course, where first of all the participants, both in the judging panel, who are the ones watching the proposal most closely, of course, but more broadly, the 40 or so organizations that are part of the New Plastics Economy Initiative, will all eagerly wait and see who the winners will be, of course, and depending on who they are, there might be more or less interest depending on in what field they are innovating. But generally speaking, there is definitely the opportunity to talk to participants in the New Plastics Economy Initiative about commercialization opportunities during and after the accelerator program. We do not intend to put up any barriers towards those conversations, bilateral conversations, for example. I think it would definitely serve the purposes of running the innovation moonshot program if such opportunities arose between, say, a participant organization and someone who would win the challenge. In a case-by-case manner, we would of course have to evaluate so that we create or avoid any antitrust problems or other type of things that would be would not fit general practices and ethics regarding competition. But we think that generally speaking, there is definitely the opportunity to work with any of the participant organizations during the accelerator program and afterwards, if that opportunity arises.
Very good. Our next question, I think, might be addressed to any one of the three of you gentlemen. Successfully recycling plastics has a technical aspect, for example, how to chemically digest a polymer, and a social aspect, for example, how to get more people to recycle the plastics that they use. Do proposals have to address the social aspect?
Michaela, maybe you want to add a little bit on this, but I can begin by saying that for the challenge and the proposal, it comes back down to being able to describe how this would work in practice. We think that in general, when you have a plastics packaging item or a material itself that doesn't get recycled, that is mainly a design problem, a systemic design problem, and it's not a behavioral problem. Of course, that there is certain barriers to overcome when it comes to getting users who sometimes are the weakest links in the chain to get the material from the use phase and into the after use phase. Any type of technology or design that makes this as easy as possible will of course be encouraged, but it's not sort of in scope of this challenge, which is really about materials, to devise a mechanism that guarantees that an item would get collected and recycled. This is also something that varies tremendously between different geographies and markets. So, I mean, it is very much on top of our minds, and a big part of the new plastic economy agenda to figure out how to better to strengthen that link between users and the after-use system, and a credible description for how your solution will enable that, if possible, is very much encouraged. But yeah, like I said, it's not something we sort of expect to be seeing as a focus.
Okay. Does anyone have anything else to add to that answer? No? Okay. We're seeing a number of questions around this particular topic area, so we'll select this one. Multiple packaging materials are both small format and multi-material. Will solutions which address retrieval and capture but still use existing materials be in scope for this challenge?
So if I read the question right, it sounds like it is a question on whether innovations in collection and recycling would be in scope. If that is the question, the answer is no. These are, of course, important technologies and innovations as well. But like I mentioned briefly earlier, we do see a lot of innovation already happening here, and it is, well, it's not completely treating the symptom. There are also systemic problems that can be fixed in the after use, but we chose to limit the challenge to the material, the materials in this case, and also we have the sister challenge, as some of you might be aware of, that addresses design, the design aspect of small format packaging in particular.
Okay, thank you. Our next question: can proving the recyclability of a new material be part of the proposed accelerator project rather than already demonstrated for early stage technologies?
The short answer is yes to that.
Clear and concise. Thank you very much. Our next question: how does marine degradable plastic innovation fit into this challenge?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's one that we have grappled with quite a bit when devising the technical brief. If you look at marine degradability in isolation as a property in itself, it is of course favorable if that item ended up in the ocean. However, most people, both on the academic side and the business side, agree that devising by design packaging to be marine or degradable, or also in a similar fashion environmentally degradable, so that they would over time degrade if you throw them on the ground, is not to recommend. And the reason being is that there is a very big downside risk of the type of incentives that this would create, or the type of interpretation that this will lead to in the marketplace. If marine degradable plastics became a big thing, it might encourage people to just throw them in the ocean anyway, and be less concerned with collection and recycling or other types of retrieval. Not only would that mean that probably a lot of marine degradable plastics enter the ocean faster than they would typically degrade, but it also creates a risk of adding lots of non-degradable plastics directly into the marine environment, because the risk is high that people will not be able to tell the difference, or that they might make a mistake, or that some people actually also won't care that much. So we have not said that marine degradability as such is a sought after property. If it can be proven that something is biodegradable in such an extent that it's also degradable in the ocean, I mean, that's fine, but it's not one of the evaluation criteria. And we also, according to sort of the benchmark technical scoping we have done, seems like there's a lot of trade-offs you have to make if you devise a marine degradable material in terms of mechanical and barrier properties, and that it's unlikely that such a material alone would be suited for the applications that we're mentioning. Happy to be proven wrong on that one, of course, but this is where our analysis has landed.
Thank you, Mats. We're coming in on the end of our webinar time today. We've got time for just a few more questions. If you haven't submitted a question yet, and you have a question that you would like to submit to the representatives from NineSigma and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, please do so as soon as possible. As I said previously, we will collect all of these questions and get those answers posted to you in the project forum. We'll go through maybe one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap up today's webinar. Let's see, we will go with, can those involved with the program help applicants build new partnerships to more effectively commercialize innovations? For example, if a pre-production capability is known, can they help build a relationship between the applicant and that organization? This seems to be geared more towards the accelerator portion of the challenge as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and I think that broadly speaking, the answer is yes. One of the key functions of the accelerator program is to work with not only volunteer mentors and advisors from the industry, but also with a dedicated accelerator team who would work with the accelerator cohort to try to achieve the individual customized needs. And if one of those needs is production capacity to scale up and in a given material or application, there is definitely the opportunity to seek out such partnerships, even if they happen to lie outside of the New Plastics Economy core participant group, so to speak. We have by now a relatively extensive network of friends and contacts who have already expressed, very tentatively of course, but they have expressed a willingness and an interest in being helpful and available for both advice and technical support during the accelerator phase. So we would of course try as hard as we can to find the right type of support for the right type of need during that phase.
Very good, thank you, Mats. I think our last question will be, for proposed novel materials, are computational property calculations acceptable as supporting data? I think this could go to either Mats or Stephen.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. We'd be very happy to receive calculations. That would be absolutely fine.
And to build on that, yeah. So to build on that, I think it's maybe begs the broader question. You know, how important would experimental evidence be versus models or estimates? And I think that we are, like Stephen said, we are open to different maturities of solution, which of course also means that proposals will come in with different levels of technical support or technical evidence. Some proposal might not have experimental evidence, which is acceptable. We will of course try to weigh or gauge the evaluation of the proposal so that it is a fair evaluation based on the maturity of the proposal. It is, you know, it can be to some extent an advantage to be more mature, but we don't necessarily want to say that the more mature you are, the bigger your chances are of being among the high potential proposals. And that means that a model of properties or a computational estimate of properties is functional, just as an experimental data set would be functional in the proposal.
Mats, Stephen, thank you for that answer. And I think we will go ahead and wrap up the Q&A session for today. Thank you all for your questions, and thank you to the gentlemen from EMF and NineSigma for answering those questions. As I stated previously, if we didn't get to your question, and I can tell you right now that there are a number of questions that we weren't able to get to in today's webinar. They will be answered and posted on the Circular Materials Challenge page following this webinar. So, what can you do today? First off, you can visit the NineSigma page. The web address is listed there for you. You can download the challenge summary, as Stephen mentioned. I'd also like to mention, and if you haven't already done so, you can subscribe to the project forum, which will help keep you up to date on this project. Should you need any assistance, either with submitting your proposal or if you have a question about the project itself, you can reach out to the NineSigma Solution Provider Help Desk. The email address and phone number are there on your screen. And lastly, one very important piece of information, the submission deadline. October 20th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Please be sure to submit your proposals in advance of that 5 p.m. deadline. We won't be able to accept any submissions after that 5 p.m. deadline. That will conclude today's webinar. One final reminder that today's webinar was recorded, and a copy of the recording and the transcription will be made available on the contest page. Thank you to our speakers for their time and expertise. To our audience, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to receiving your submissions. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.